Welcome to MMA on the Rocks. My name is Bill Welker. You are listening to episode 195 of the podcast, or you're joining us live here on Facebook or YouTube. Today's Sunday, June 14th. We're coming off of the most over-delivering card, I think, maybe in UFC history, and that's UFC on ESPN 10, headlined by flyweights Jessica I, Cynthia Calvillo. Before we get into all that and much more, let me introduce my co-host, all the way from sunny New Jersey, Jeff, the Animal Wilson. Jeff, how you feeling on this early Sunday afternoon, my friend?
Well, I feel good. Got to go to the beach yesterday for the first time in a couple of years because I hadn't gone the last couple of summers. So it was nice. Bill, what'd you get into this weekend?
Trying to get tan as me, huh, kid?
That's the plan.
We were hanging out mostly. Went to a friend's pool on Friday. Took the kiddo swimming. This morning we went for a nice 8-mile bike ride, some local trails. The kid likes to ride the bike, so I throw her on the front of the bike, and there's some nice trails around here. Went for a little ride this morning. Worked up a sweat, and ready to just kind of chill the rest of the day. Do a little barbecue in the backyard and maybe watch a movie or something. Keep it low key,
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, just trying to get by in this crazy world. A lot of wild stuff going on, Jeff. Have you seen the Dave Chappelle special that he released a couple of days ago?
Yeah. He hit some nerves, man. It was to see a celebrity be so honest and not to sugarcoat anything. That's Dave Chappelle in a nutshell. He left Hollywood for a few years. He had his reasons, so it's good to hear from him.
I thought it was so powerful.
Yeah.
A lot of people have mixed feelings about Dave Chappelle. He rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but I think if he took that special for what it was and just his feelings about the aftermath of George Floyd's murder, it was really powerful stuff. He's a super articulate guy. He even found ways to insert comedy into it. It wasn't a comedy routine, but he had spots where it was funny and it worked and it wasn't forced. The guy's a genius, but the way that he put everything and how talking about how people sometimes feel pressured into saying things about what's going on. I felt a little bit of it myself because, we have this platform here and this is what's going on in the world. There are cities burning to the ground. We should talk about it, but are we the most qualified people to talk about it? No, not at all. But I guess then if you don't say anything, you're wrong too. It's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't in this society. And I just thought he nailed it. So, if anybody's, keeping track of all the craziness going on in the world, I highly recommend checking out that Dave Chappelle special. It was he really put a lot of things into perspective and put some twists on things in ways that I hadn't thought about before. And it was cool, man. And I'll just say this about the whole situation. I think everything comes down to intent, right? So if you're intending to do good with the things you want to say or the things you don't want to say, then that's cool. As long as we're all on the same page that cop in Minneapolis is human garbage and deserves to rot the rest of his life in prison. I hope he's on suicide watch for every single day of it because I don't want him taking the easy way out. Then however you kind of cope with the situation is fine. You want to put a black box on Instagram, you want to make a donation to Black Lives Matter, or some other organization that is reputable and the funds are going to help the right causes. if that's what you feel is right and your intent is to do good, then you're doing good. I think a lot of people are too quick to judge reactions, and there's a lot of knee jerking going on, and a lot of soapboxing on the social media, which is why I kind of distance myself from that a little bit. I do social media distancing as well as social distancing, Jeff. I think it's healthy for the mind. Social distancing is healthy for the body. The social media distancing is healthy for the mind. But that's that, man. I'll just leave it at that and just be good to each other out there. No matter what your background is or where you come from. In any case, I know I don't have to tell any of you listening to this podcast all of this because you're probably all good people. We're just here to talk about some fights and some drinks. So let's do that. UFC on ESPN 10, Jeff. It possibly the most over-delivered card ever. There were so many people, and I don't know what happened to all of them. I hope they're somewhere eating their words, saying that this is the worst UFC card ever put together, and they're not going to watch it and this and that. 3 fights in, Jeff. It took 3 minutes for us to get 3 finishes. They had an hour of dead air to fill before they put on the Merab Dvalishvili fight. I don't know. What do you think? But most over-delivered card ever? I'd say it's in the conversation.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you, man. Dude, there was not a boring fight on this card. The decisions were awesome. The decisions were back and forth. A couple of split decisions in here. The finishes were great. This card had everything, man. All it needed was a crowd to be perfect.
Yeah. Some of these fights would have benefited from a crowd. I agree. But so much action. If you guys are just listening to the podcast and you didn't watch these fights, you're going to want to go back and watch some of them. If not all of them. I can make a case that you should watch every fight on this card. It was a spectacular card, top to bottom. And you could even do this card in reverse if you wanted to. It would still kind of make sense. Because, it didn't have that star power to it where that would, get the average person to tune in. But I think this is the perfect time to do that, Jeff. This is how you build new stars, because there's no other live sports on. So people tune in. I don't really know any of these people, but it's the UFC. It's got to be okay. And then you get a card that delivers like this. I mean, hats off to the matchmakers here. Mick Maynard, Sean Shelby. Fantastic job pairing up these fighters. I think maybe the smaller cage has something to do with it too, because there's not as much room to run. So for those who don't know, the UFC has been hosting these events at the Apex, and which is basically their giant performance center where they have training facilities and everything like that for the athletes. And the cage is 25 feet across, whereas their normal pay-per-view cage would be 30 feet across. So that's a big difference. That's a lot of square footage that the fighters are missing out on. So it kind of forces them to be in close quarters and engage a little bit more. Let's start off with this main event. Of course, we have to talk about Jessica Eye missing weight again. And you might look at it and say, like, oh, it's only by a quarter of a pound. But it's pass or fail. It's, did you make weight or did you not? And you're even given a 1 pound allowance. And she was a quarter pound over that 1 pound allowance. And then for those of you thinking, oh, well, it's just another quarter of a pound, couldn't she just cut that? I challenge you to go out and lose 10 pounds right now. And it's difficult it is to lose another quarter of a pound. Because the first couple of pounds will come off pretty easily. It's all water weight that, it's like when you're wringing water out of a fully saturated sponge. Yeah, it's easy to get a lot of it out. But then after a while, you're wringing and wringing and wringing, and there's still water in that sponge, but you got to squeeze harder and harder and harder to get every drop out. So coming down to that last quarter of a pound, it probably felt like 5 more pounds. But in any case, it was disappointing because Jessica Eye is someone who has been very vocal in the past about fighters missing weight. And, she comes in a quarter pound or over. So give me your thoughts on that before we move on, talk about the fight, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm disappointed, dude. A lot of the fighters on last week's card missed weight too. I was very upset at that. At some point you kind of have to take into consideration the whole pandemic and maybe getting food or certain types of food is more difficult. But at the same time, these guys are professionals. So, I'm disappointed. I felt like Jessica I needs to go back to bantamweight. This isn't the first time she misses weight at flyweight. But, Bill, take nothing away from Cynthia Calvillo's performance here. She looked like a complete stud in there. And shout out to Alexander Rao, greeting us from New Jersey.
What's up, Alex? Yeah, man. Cynthia Calvillo looked phenomenal last night. Her boxing and counter striking was really crisp. She was touching Jessica I up, who everybody assumed she would have the advantage on the feet. And then when it got to the ground, man, her back control was really something special, because she would get really high up on the back where a lot of people would get shaken off, and she would just kind of like shimmy down and readjust and use her feet as hooks to get behind Jessica's knees and kind of pull herself back down and maintain that control. I would love to see a statistics on how long she had control of Jessica's back throughout the course of this fight. But pretty easy one for the judges, unanimous decision. And, I scored it exactly the same way as most of the judges. I gave the first round to Jessica I, and then it seemed like she just lost the wind out of her sails, and it was all Cynthia Calvillo from there on out. I thought she looked great. I think flyweight is the place for her. She said she was sucking herself out too much to make 115. So the future's bright for Cynthia Calvillo. Caitlin Chukagian calling her out at the end of the fight. I love that fight. I got to imagine this will be Jessica I's last fight in the UFC, at least for a while. She was having a, kind of hot and cold streak, and then, missing the weight and losing the fight, missing the weight when she's given this opportunity for a main event that a majority of hardcore fans were very vocal about the fact that she did not deserve. It's not looking good for Jessica I, but bright future for Cynthia Calvillo. What would you like to see from her next, Jeff?
Dude, I'd love to see her take on Caitlin Chukagian. I think that's a good fight to make right now. Both of them are kind of on hot streaks, and credit to Cynthia Calvillo, dude. This was her first 5-round fight, and she looked great in all 5 rounds. Like you said, I felt like she struggled a little bit in that first round, but credit to her, because every round after that she looked great, was initiating the takedowns, was controlling the fight from there on. So, huge credit to Cynthia Calvillo. Caitlin Chukagian, tough in her own right as well. I'd definitely like to see that. But Bill, what do you do with Cynthia Calvillo? She just took out the number 1 fighter in the division.
You make her fight Caitlin Chukagian. I don't think she's ready for that Shevchenko fight just yet. So I think, maybe they kind of square off. I don't know what you do with Valentina Shevchenko. I think that's a bigger problem, because here you have Calvillo took out the number 1 contender, but I don't think she's ready for that Shevchenko fight just yet. I would like to see her get one more. I think Calvillo and Chukagian could be a main event, make that another 5-rounder, and then we'll see. We'll see what goes on from there. And this card is the first time I think I can ever remember, Jeff, that we had a fighter in the main event and a fighter in the co-main event who missed weight. I can't remember this ever happening. Can you?
No, not at all. And dude, I was more disappointed with Karl Roberson, dude. He is in the next weight class. He was fighting at light heavyweight yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what happened. He has some kind of medical condition where he missed weight a couple weeks ago. This fight was supposed to happen a few weeks ago, and then he comes back. The fight gets rescheduled after Marvin Vettori, tries to assault him in a hotel lobby, and then he misses weight by even more again this time, and it really kind of looked like he didn't want to be in there. Now, Karl Roberson, I've been high on him, since he came off the Contender Series. You know this, Jeff. I've been one of his biggest advocates. Really great kickboxer, really strong dude. Usually very good takedown defense. He's got those nasty elbows that'll hit you with if you hold on to a single leg too long. And Yeah. So even more rare than having two fighters from the main and co-main event miss weight. The two fighters who miss weight lost, which is a very rare thing. Because if you look at the statistics from last year, I think fighters who missed weight on main cards were like 9-1 or
Yeah.
something ridiculous like that. It's sanctioned cheating, as Dominic Cruz puts it. But here we had two fighters miss weight. Those two fighters were both the favorites in their fights respectively, I think, and they both lost. Marvin Vettori, man, I hate to talk well about a guy who does two of my biggest pet peeves, Jeff: missing weight and getting into fights outside of the octagon. I don't like that kind of behavior. I like when these guys act professional. The sports had to come a long way to convince a lot of people that it's not barbaric. And then guys doing dumb shit like trying to fight in a hotel lobby when everybody is walking around with a video camera in their pocket, doesn't do much for that. But his performance inside the cage, Jeff, put all his emotions aside for all, as angry as he was at Karl Roberson, and just went to work, man. He stood with him a little bit and then got him to the ground twice. And that second time, it seemed like Roberson didn't have the will to fight. Give me your thoughts on this victory by Marvin Vettori here, Jeff.
Yeah, dude, I've been high on Marvin Vettori for a little bit now, and dude, he looked great in there. His striking was good, ground game was looking fantastic, and Bill, Marvin Vettori at the stare downs said to Karl Roberson, "You already lost. The weight cut beat you." Which I thought spoke volumes. I was like, man, he kind of got him there, and missed weight twice, when they were supposed to fight last time too. So Marvin Vettori, a very, very angry man in there, and credit to him for being calm, being collected. It looked like he was going to punch himself out a little bit in that first round when he got Roberson to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But able to, keep his emotions in check and got a very nice rear naked choke finish. So good for him.
Yeah, man. And as much as I hate the antics with the hotel room and the missing weight and everything, it's probably what Marvin Vettori needed, because he's been flying under the radar, just kind of getting in there and, grabbing his lunchbox and going to work in the cage and quietly racking up victories. Also had a really close fight with Israel Adesanya just 2 years ago, where he lost a razor-thin split decision to him. And then before that, he had a draw with Omari Akhmedov. That was a really close fight too. So he's obviously, championship caliber. I think he just needed to find a way to get some more eyes on him. I know Ian Heinisch has a fight booked, but coming up soon, but these guys are having quick turnarounds right now with the pandemic and everything. That's a matchup I want to see, Jeff. Ian Heinisch and Marvin Vettori. I think that'd be a fun fight. What do you think?
Yeah. I think I don't think that fight goes more than 2 rounds. That's a really fun fight. But I don't know, man. I'd be a little bit worried if our Marvin Vettori. Even, Ian Heinisch is no walk in the park, man. But at the same time, Vettori definitely deserves a crack at the top 15. Just most recently had a win over Cesar Mutante, who is a very, very tough guy in this middleweight division. So, Vettori, he can mix it up really well. So I'd like to see how he approaches the power that Ian Heinisch brings into the octagon.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really fun fight. And Vettori considers himself more of a striker, and majority of UFC wins have come by submission. So that's a fun one. Moving on down the line here, we had 2 close split decisions in a row. Charles Rosa getting the nod over Kevin Aguilar. Charles Rosa with a quick turnaround after his fight with Bryce Davis a couple of weeks ago. Bryce Mitchell, sorry. Where he found himself in a twister for like 7.5 minutes. But yeah, this one was close. I think it was 1 apiece going into the third. Both guys had their spots in this fight, and Rosa just kind of edged it away. I didn't have a problem with the decision. Did you?
Yeah, no, it looked like it went the right way. Good for Charles Rosa. He looked like he went in there with the right game plan. The first round looked like it wasn't going his way, but he definitely picked up the pace in rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah, man. And then the fight of the night for me, Andre Fili and Charles Jourdain. This fight was so back and forth. It was really close, but I think Fili really ran away with it. The grappling was huge. Jourdain is a little bit lost on the ground, and it showed. And then, where he was supposed to have a huge advantage on the feet, Fili was hanging with him there too. So I think this decision went the right way as well, but it was a really close fight. It was a really fun one. I would look forward to seeing both of these guys fighting in.
Yeah, credit to Andre Fili, man, because that was a tough first round for him. He got dropped hard by a left hand from Jourdain here. So, I thought he was going to struggle a little bit, but he definitely came back in the second and third, using the takedowns, using the ground game really well. So, yeah, that was a very fun fight. I'd love to see his guys mix it up again in the future.
Yeah, and how fitting was it the week before Father's Day? We had the battle for the best dad joke nickname with Andre Touchy Fili and Charles Air Jourdain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, bro. I can't get on board with either of these nicknames, man. They're both so terrible.
They really are. But at the same time, they're so great. He's Canadian and he's Air Jourdain.
I guess. I mean, at least he can fight well.
Jordan Espinosa, a little less of a close fight, looking really good against Mark De La Rosa. Espinosa right away, right out of the gate, was working that jab that was lightning fast, and he was just sticking it in De La Rosa's face over and over again. I thought he looked good in this fight. But I don't have a whole lot else to say about it. Do you?
Yeah, I was actually really impressed with Espinosa. For me, Bill, actually, I thought this would be fight of the night at the end of it. But Jordan Espinosa just doing a great job of using wrestling in reverse because Mark De La Rosa was shooting in for those takedowns up against the cage, and Espinosa was dropping elbows, reminding me of when Dan Henderson fought Hector Lombard. And I was a little nervous. I actually thought he might knock out De La Rosa with some of those elbows because he kind of had to take a knee for a second, reset for the shot. So I thought, Jordan Espinosa, using that grappling in reverse, I thought that was a genius move. He looked really, really good in there. I'm glad that he got the win because he was coming off a few losses, so definitely needed a win. So good for Jordan Espinosa. They both looked great. It was a really, really fun fight. Definitely go back and watch this one if you missed it.
Yeah, for sure. It was a really fun fight. I don't like giving a lot of technical criticism. I try to keep everything positive, but one thing I do say fairly consistently is don't hold on to a single leg too long in MMA because both of your hands are tied up and you have nothing to defend your face. So if you can't finish that single leg immediately, you need to transition to something else or let it go because you're just too vulnerable in that position. You can't just it's not like a wrestling match where if you grab a leg, you hold on to that fucking thing, so your opponent can't be scoring points against you. But in a fight, it's a different story. You're leaving yourself too open to take a lot of damage, and it's really dangerous when you're unable to defend yourself. So, I'm sure he'll learn from this and hopefully not do that anymore. But that's something I'm a big advocate of. All right, Mariya Agapova just annihilated Hannah Cifers. This was a super impressive performance here from the young lady from Kazakhstan. Finished with a rear naked choke, 2 minutes, 42 seconds of the very first round. Give me your thoughts on the Kazakhstanian.
Yeah, I don't know how you would say
Kazakhstanite?
Kazakhstani, I don't know. But Bill, Mariya Agapova is a scary, scary fighter, man. Her striking looked great, able to use her length really well against Hannah Cifers. And then, after dominating her on the feet, chokes her out for the win. This fight was another quick finish, under 3 minutes. Dude, and Agapova's got those crazy eyes, man. Like she she loves this stuff, man. And I'm excited to see her in there again. There's something about her, Bill. I don't know what it is, but there's something about the cut of her jib that it just makes her fun to watch. Even in the post-fight interview, you could see she was getting all excited talking about it. Like that's what you love to see, man. So good for her. I can't wait to see what's next for her in this division.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to see. Of course, she came through Dana White's Contender Series, lost on there, but then came back to have two big finishes in Invicta. And, lo and behold, the UFC needs fighters during these pandemic times. So whoever's willing to step up, right place, right time for Mariya Agapova. And not only did she seize that opportunity, she capitalized on it by having a really impressive performance against a tough Hannah Cyphers. She's no walk in the park for anybody. All right. Last minute on top of last minute on top of very last minute. So Merab Dvalishvili is in Vegas for Aljamain Sterling's fight. And they were talking to their managers and saying, Merab hasn't had a fight in a while. He's ready to go. Oh, if he's ready to go, does he want to fight next week? Sure. Does he want to fight Ray Borg? Sure. So they booked that. That's good to go. Of course, Ray Borg, unfortunately, his son has severe medical problems where he has a shunt installed. I'm not sure where it is exactly, and I'm not too savvy with the medical terms. But basically, he has a condition where he could need emergency surgery at any time. Those of you who follow Ray Borg's career know that he's been through heartbreaking situations with his son since he was born. And I guess they had a little bit of a scare. Luckily, he was fine. He didn't need the emergency surgery, but of course he has to go home to be with his son. Everybody understands, including Merab. He was a total gentleman about it. So we get Gustavo Lopez to make his UFC debut. Came out of the woodwork. They had to do this at a catch weight, and he still had to cut 17 pounds in 2 days, I think. And Merab went in there and just put on a fucking wrestling clinic against this kid, Jeff. I can't stress how impressive it was. 13 takedowns in 15 minutes. That's almost a takedown a minute. Like, for anybody who's ever wrestled, like, try doing 13 takedowns, like, with somebody giving you no resistance. Now try attempting 24 takedowns and hitting 13 of them within 15 minutes, and tell me how exhausted you are. Especially like during a pandemic when he doesn't have his regular training regimen and his regular training partners and everything like that. They call this guy the Machine, and for good fucking reason, Jeff. I mean, it is so impressive what this guy is able to do. A clear dominant victory. I thought it was a clear 10-8 round. A lot of you on Twitter disagreed with me. Clear 10-8 in the second round. I don't see how you give anything but a 10-8. He mauled him. He controlled him from the top, outlanded him like 60-1 with significant strikes, nearly submitted him with that nasty neck crank armbar hybrid that he had. I don't know what your guys' criteria is for a 10-8 round, but it must be like near death. And some of your arguments were, oh, but he had some success at the end of the round. Like he got completely mauled for 4.5 minutes, and then he threw a couple of punches in the last 20 seconds of the round. It's still a 10-8 round. And two of the judges agreed. One judge even gave two 10-8 rounds. Which I can see the argument for. I don't necessarily agree with that, but definitely a 10-8 in a second. Give me your thoughts on Merab here, Jeff, and even the thoughts on Gustavo Lopez stepping up to get in there with this guy that nobody in the top 15 wants to fight. He's clearly being ducked by a lot of guys, and he did it on 2 days' notice.
Yeah, dude. Credit to Gustavo Lopez for taking this fight, man. Bill, I told you, I'm loving these fighters from Georgia that we got in the UFC, man. Merab Dvalishvili, so tough, so much cardio to be able to do all that wrestling in 3 rounds and land all those takedowns. Dude, he looked flawless in there. He looked like that weight class's version of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Dude, nobody's lining up to fight Merab Dvalishvili. I can't say enough good things about this guy. I've been riding his coattails. I've been on his hype train for a little bit now. And listen, I get excited every time I hear his name on a fight card. He's not somebody who puts on boring fights. He's somebody who's going to put his foot on the gas pedal and not let up for 3 rounds. I'd like to see him go for 5 rounds, see if he can keep it up for 5 rounds. So good for him, dude. He, always puts on an exciting fight.
Yeah. Well, from what I hear, and I've heard some, firsthand stories from how he is in the gym, he'll spar 10 rounds and then they'll try and tell him to rest or something. And then they'll find him like over on the heavy bag or something. Like the guy he has one speed and that's go. And that's all he knows. He's just an absolute savage. So much fun to watch. I can understand why guys don't want to get in there with him, because it's not like anybody's scared, but it's like, if there's a guy you don't want to fight, it's the guy that's not going to go away for 15 minutes. And it's the guy that's going to try and push your face into the mat and bully you for 15 minutes. It's a little, I feel like it's a little more acceptable if you're going to fight somebody like, oh, this guy might be able to knock me out, but then you kind of game plan for it. You can't game plan for somebody that's just going to be a Tasmanian devil in there from bell to bell. And you have to shut their lights off to be able to make them stop. And nobody's been able to do that yet.
That's a good metaphor for him. Tasmanian devil. That's him in a nutshell. Yeah.
The Jordanian devil.
There we go. That's a good fighter nickname, Bill.
All right, we're changing. I'm calling Ray Longo as soon as we get off the. Ray, if you're listening, we're going to change Merab's nickname to the Jordanian devil. I like it. All right, Jeff. The first 3 fights on the card, I'm going to give you a quick breakdown. You know how we do, and you tell me which one impressed you the most. All of them. I mean, flip a 3-headed coin for all I care. But Julia Avila, 22-second knockout of Gina Mazany. It's like as soon as Avila got touched by Mazany, she just went berserk and just annihilated Mazany, got her up against the cage and was just dropping bombs. Tyson Nam with a beautiful 1-punch knockout over Zaruk Adasev. 32 seconds into the first round, he dips his head to the left off the center line and follows up with a right hand that was just perfectly placed. And as he dipped, he never took his eyes off his target. Much like we saw with like that precision knockout from Sean O'Malley last week, with Cody Garbrandt when he dipped down, kept his eyes right where he wanted to throw the punch. And that's how you throw accurate punches. Easier said than done, of course, but Tyson Nam making that knockout look beautiful, highlight reel for him. And then followed up with like a flying Dan Henderson fist from hell. And then Christian Aguilera with a 59-second TKO over Anthony Ivy in the first fight of the night. So 3 fights in under 3 minutes, Jeff, well under 3 minutes. Who impressed you the most here?
Bill, first off, I just want to say all 3 of these fights combined were under 2 minutes. So super exciting start to this card. I knew it was going to be a good night, but for me, out of those 3, I got to give it to Tyson Nam, dude. He went in there and just smashed Adashev with that right hand. And then, like you said, that Dan Henderson follow-up, it was not necessary, but it was fun to watch. So, if you can only watch one of these, I personally say go watch all 3. But if I got to pick one, got to give it to Tyson Nam.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely the cleanest, technique-wise and power-wise, with the 1-punch knockout. Avila, I thought, was really impressive though, because she went full. What do they call her? Raging panda.
Yeah, she is nuts, and I like it.
Yeah, man, she had a bit of the crazy eyes at the beginning of this fight, and it worked out well for her. probably the kind of girl that'll key your car and stuff.
Oh yeah.
If you mess around and do the wrong thing. But those qualities are good for a cage fighter. Overall, the last thing I want to go over with this card, bonuses. They didn't do a fight of the night bonus. Instead, they did 4 performance of the night bonuses. They went to Marvin Vettori, Mariya Agapova, Tyson Nam, and Christian Aguilera. I don't know that I necessarily agree that that's who they should have gone to, but I can't make an argument that those people didn't deserve them. Did you see anyone different that was deserving, Jeff?
No, I hold on. Let me just go back a sec here, because I think I would have given a bonus to Avila if it was me, and maybe one to. Nah, I think I would have just given one to her. Since there was no fight of the night. But if I had to pick one, for me, it would have been Espinosa versus De La Rosa. And yeah, I think I would have liked to see Avila get a bonus as well.
Yeah,
I'm not sorry to cut you off, Bill, but I'm not mad at the picks either.
Yeah, neither am I. If they were gonna do a fight of the night for me, it was Andre Fili and Charles Jourdain. That was a fun one, but I like that they decided to say, like, there were so many great finishes. We want to reward them. We're not going to do the traditional by the book. Sometimes it doesn't play well for the fighters that the UFC kind of makes up their rules as they go along. But, sometimes, people get an extra 50 grand that didn't know they were going to get that. So that's awesome. But just what a spectacular card, Jeff. And I hope everybody who was complaining about this, shuts up in the future when these cards are announced, because we were talking about it last week. We were getting into a lot of these fights, and then, the people that you don't know, they're the hungriest ones, because they're the ones that are making 12 grand to show up. 12 and 12 is the minimum, I believe, right now. And they need to perform well to provide for their families, or to pay their bills, or to pay their college loans, or whatever they got going on, especially in this day and age. So I think people need to learn to trust the matchmakers a little bit. Sometimes you get a card that's stacked top to bottom and it just doesn't deliver. But this card, man, Jeff, I'd have to say, there have been good cards in the past that, like, oh, wow, I never would have thought this card would be so good. But I think this is the best one in recent memory, anyway, for me, where there were so many people complaining about it. And it was just awesome from start to finish. It was a great night of fights. Like, I didn't want to stop watching a single fight here.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I would have loved to see more fights on this card. And, Bill, so we talk a lot about good cards, and some of those cards, you kind of feel like they're supposed to be good because of the names on them. But this one, because it didn't have too many names who we know off the top of our heads. Like you said, these guys, they're hungry. A lot of them have regular jobs in addition to fighting. So, when they get that chance and they prove themselves, it's so awesome to see. Like there are some fighters on here that I'd never heard of or seen before. And now I'm like, I'm going to keep an eye out for when I hear that name come up again. Like Julia Avila, for example. I loved watching her go crazy in there. Mm-hmm. So, like, just as an example, next time I see that name, I'm definitely tuning in.
Yeah, even if it's on YouTube, watching her key your boyfriend's car.
She could probably make that exciting and interesting. She's got that it factor.
The raging panda. And I think despite the unfortunate circumstances leading up to this card definitely benefited Marvin Vettori, because here's a guy who probably should have been ranked already, after losing a really close decision to the champion. You would think he'd be somewhere in the top 15, because otherwise, I feel like that even takes away a little bit from the champion. Like, he barely beat this guy and he's not even ranked. So we got to get a ranking for Marvin Vettori, and I think there's some fun fights waiting for him. And yeah, Agapova was a big surprise star of this card.
Cool too, yeah.
Merab, even Gustavo Lopez stepping up on 2 days' notice and going the distance with a guy like Merab and still fighting right up to the end. And our buddy Mark Fellows is on here. He says, standout performances Agapova. We were just saying that, Mark, so we agree. Aguilera was another one. Yeah, so much positive came out of this after so much negative from the fan base leading up to it. But that's to be expected. The MMA fans tend to be a little soft and sensitive. That's just the way it is. But we love you guys anyway.
Yeah, Bill, I'm not as nice about it. I think MMA fans are too fickle, man. We got just give it every fight a chance. Give it like a round and a half.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get it. Like if say you're like a baseball fan and it's like the Marlins are gonna play the Rockies or something, and it's like two teams you don't root for. It's like, well, why would I watch this game? And then you turn the game on and there's like 8 home runs in the first inning. That still wouldn't be exciting to me because baseball sucks.
Yeah, but baseball would have to be interesting for that metaphor to work.
Anyway, the question on everybody's mind, Jeff, is probably what I've been sipping on for the first 40 minutes of this show. I found this tequila, Jeff, and I got to tell you, it's a miracle.
Is that what it's called?
It's called Milagro.
Nice.
Can you translate for me?
Yeah, it means a miracle in Spanish.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fitting then, because it's a miracle I found this tequila. So the guy at the liquor store told me it's añejo, and I was like, "What the fuck did you call me?" So this is an aged tequila. So what they do is they basically take the regular silver tequila and they age it in oak barrels like you would do with a bourbon or something like that, and that kind of gives it like more of a yellowy color. It brings a lot of the sweetness from the agave forward. It gives it kind of an oaky flavor. So this is a sipping tequila. Now, every time I bring up tequila, there's always 5 out of 10 people will say like, "Oh, I can't drink tequila. I get too crazy with it, or I get really bad hangovers, or I had a bad experience." And then when I dig a little deeper, it's always the bad experience was like, "Well, I did all these shots of Jose Cuervo in college," and it's like, all right, well, this is a totally different animal here, because this is not something you do shots of. Tequila is actually designed to be sipped, but for some reason, American culture has transformed it into like this thing that we need to do shots of and end up getting really sick and throwing up and getting bad hangovers. And a low quality tequila like a Jose Cuervo will have artificial sweeteners and all kinds of other chemicals and garbage in it. And that's why it makes you feel like shit the next day. A really good high quality tequila like a Milagro or like a Casamigos or a Don Julio, you could put a bottle of that away, over the course of a Sunday afternoon and wake up fine for work the next day. I promise you. And that's not just coming from me, because I don't get hangovers, as you know, Jeff. But even other people I know who get them really bad, and I turn them on to like a higher quality tequila, and they can drink a lot of that and feel fine the next day. The problem is with the added sugars and the added sweeteners. Tequila is made from agave, so it's just like a natural plant. So it's not going to mess you up the way like a lot of the sugary liquors will. And it's hard to tell too. Like you kind of have to know what you're putting in your body, and here, like the FDA doesn't require like ingredients or anything like that on liquor. So you just kind of have to know, what you're getting. But I like this one, Jeff. It's got like a smooth, like little bit of hint of vanilla up front. And then you get the agave sweetness and a little bit of oakiness from the wood that it's aged in. And then it finishes with a little bit of spice. I wouldn't mix this with anything, but you could do like a nice spicy margarita with it. But I would use a silver tequila for that. But it's good sipping. I've been really into tequila lately because summertime. It's nice light drink to sip on. Any thoughts?
Yeah, no, it sounds good. It sounds pretty balanced too. I like that. Definitely, I'm definitely gonna have to try some of that when I get down there, Bill.
Yeah, man. I got a couple of other ones, but we'll take it a week at a time. I've been getting really into the aged Age tequila. Don't be an añejo, Jeff.
Bill, when you said Añejo, I thought you meant my cousin.
Is that his name?
No. That was part of the joke.
He's just an a-hole. All right.
Oh, man.
We got another fun card next week, Jeff. I'm really excited for this one. There's some really fun fights. UFC on ESPN 11. This one's going to be at the Apex as well. The main event, two guys that definitely don't get enough credit for putting on exciting fights, Curtis Blaydes and Alexander Volkov. And I don't know, man. I don't know which way to go with this one. Volkov is a guy who's super technical with his striking for a big guy. He's got good takedown defense. But Curtis Blaydes, may have some of the best wrestling in the heavyweight division. And his only kryptonite seems to be Francis Ngannou in fights that have controversial endings. We had a cut and we had possibly an early TKO stoppage. But this is a fun main event, man. I'm gone back and forth with it a couple of times in my head. And of course, with the pandemic and everything, you don't know what kind of training camp these guys have had and whatever other craziness they've been dealing with. Give me your thoughts on this main event here.
Bill, I'm super excited for this fight, man. Curtis Blaydes, always a really tough dude. Mixes it up really well, can show that he can finish people on the feet. His wrestling credentials are there. And Alexander Volkov, a sturdy guy, very durable, great work on the feet. I'm really excited for that one, man. That's one of those heavyweight fights that I think we haven't seen in a while, man. Don't get me wrong. I always get excited when Francis Ngannou fights, but dude, Blaydes versus Volkov, this is one you definitely don't want to miss. And they're going for 5 rounds. I don't think it's going to last that long, but it's definitely going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah. I mean, these guys aren't really known for, going to decision. And I'll always feel bad for Volkov for that Derrick Lewis fight, man, where he beat the shit out of Derrick Lewis for 4 minutes and 48 seconds. And then right at the end of the fight, Derrick Lewis just pulls a punch out of his ass and knocks Volkov out.
Yeah, he had it, man.
You gotta love Derrick Lewis. I mean, he's hilarious. He's entertaining for the most part in there. But Volkov, man, put on like a striking clinic and just battered Derrick Lewis for almost 25 minutes. I hate to laugh, but you got to see the satire in all of that. But yeah, awesome. And then co-main event, somebody's going to sleep in this one, Jeff. Josh Emmett and Shane Burgos. These guys both have firecrackers in their hands. Both like way more power than men their size should have. And this is going to be an awesome fight. Fight of the night potential. Both of these guys like to slug it out. Josh Emmett likes to throw the big bombs, but he's patient with them. He likes to pick his spots. And we've seen Shane Burgos become a lot more patient as well, especially in his recent fights. His last fight against Makwan Amirkhani, there was a lot of pent-up aggression in that fight between those two guys. And, he stayed patient, wound up getting that TKO in the 3rd round. And then a big win over Cub Swanson before that. Josh Emmett has had a lot of problems, breaking his hand and things like that. And then he had that big knockout loss to, I want to say it was Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah, I think it might have been him. I think you're right.
Yeah, but then he bounced back with the big knockout over Michael Johnson and then another knockout over Masad Bektik in his last fight, which was almost a year ago. So I don't know what's been going on with Josh Emmett, but both these guys always exciting to watch. Really fun strikers. So that should be a good fight. Give me your thoughts, Jeff.
Dude, I'm excited. Josh Emmett is someone who brings it every time he's in there, man. He doesn't go to decisions a lot either. And like you said, a lot of power in his hands. Both of these guys have a lot of power when you consider that they're in one of the lighter weight classes where, guys are more about grinding out fights and stuff. And Shane Burgos is a tough guy too, man. You can never count him out. He's able to really, really control his emotions, and we have seen him come back from some very, very tough opponents, where he was losing fights and was just able to get the finish. One of his more recent fights, I can't remember who it was against, but I think he was losing like 2 rounds to, and then in the third round was able to get a finish. Somebody would have to look that up because I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, dude, this fight's definitely going to be good. For me, I think this has fight of the night, or at least some type of bonus written all over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. If you want to talk about potential fight of the night, I'm going to jump around the card a little bit here. This is the main event in my book, and it's Frank Camacho against Matt Steamroller Frevola. These two guys are both warriors, man. I was really excited when I heard this matchup announced a couple of weeks ago. Camacho is a guy who goes in there and he's looking to knock you out. And if he gets knocked out in the process, okay, because that's how he fights. He's in there to get the finish. And if he gets finished in the process, he's like, all right, well, I guess you got me. And Matt Frevola, man, this guy, he's never had a boring fight. I mean, his style, I still say to this day that him versus Lando Venata is one of the craziest fights I've ever seen in my life. People always ask this question on social media, like if you had to show somebody a fight to introduce them to MMA that they've never seen a fight before, I would show them that one. Be like, look, nobody won this fight, but it didn't fucking matter. And of course, Frevola is coming off the awesome fight with Luis Pena in his last bout that was here in Tampa. And I promise you guys, I'm not just high on Frevola because he's my buddy. I think he genuinely has a really exciting style. And I think you're going to see fireworks in this fight because both of these guys go for broke in there. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one, Jeff. Maybe we'll do a brawl crawl for this one and watch this one live with the folks. I'm going to be nervous for this one, but it's like a good nervous. I'm really excited for a good fight here. Give me your thoughts.
Yeah, dude, Matt Frevola, super exciting fighter to watch. And as soon as you said his name, I was thinking about his fight with Lando Venata, man. Like you said, he doesn't put on boring fights. And Matt Frevola is durable, man. He can go as many rounds as he needs to. Really, really good everywhere. Especially grappling. So I'm excited for this one. Like you said, Frank Camacho, it's do or die, man. He's going to go out either with his shield or on his shield. So super exciting fighter to watch. Bill, I'm looking at this card from top to bottom here, and this one looks like it's going to deliver as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not a bad matchup on here. We got I'll go here. I'll read you the rest of the card, Jeff, and you tell me what you're looking forward to. And of course, we'll acknowledge Mark Fellows here as well, saying that he saw Camacho fight live against Damian Brown in Sydney, and that guy's a real savage. And yeah, that was an awesome fight. We got Raquel Pennington and Marion Renault. I think that's a really fun fight. Lyman Good and Bilal Muhammad, two contrasting styles there, but we've seen Lyman Good survive against really spectacular grapplers in the past. And we got Roosevelt Roberts making a really quick turnaround, just fought 2 weeks ago. He's going to get in there with Jim Miller. No easy task for anybody, especially after fighting just 2 weeks ago. But Roosevelt Roberts, a really exciting prospect. Clay Guida and Bobby Green. This is a matchup I would have never thought of. It's like the fight I never knew I needed in my life. This is a fantastic matchup. You have the relentless, vicious striking of Bobby Green against the relentless, vicious wrestling of Clay Guida, who, is probably on the third incarnation of his career where he's gone through these phases and just comes back like better and doesn't seem to age. Brianna Van Buren and Tisha Torres. That's going to be a fun fight for the women strawweights, I believe. Marc-Andre Barriault and Oscar Pichota. That should be a fun one. Jillian Robertson, Courtney Casey. We already talked about Frank Camacho, Matt Favola. Definite potential for fight of the night there. Then we got another friend of the show, Roxanne Mataferri and Laura Murphy, 2 veterans getting in there, going after it. And then Austin Hubbard against my card here that I'm looking at says unknown fighter. So that could be anybody, Jeff. This could be like the Royal Rumble. We don't know who's. Maybe they don't announce somebody till.
Bill, I'm looking at Wikipedia and it says that it's going to be Austin Hubbard versus Joe Selecki.
Okay. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be BJ Penn. Who knows? We'll see. We won't know until they come out of the curtain, Jeff. So what's catching your eye besides what we brought up with the main co-main and Favola Camacho? What's jumping out at you here?
Oh man, Bill, I got like 3 fights that I really like here. Definitely, I'm really looking forward to Raquel Pennington versus Marion Renault. That is a really good fight. I think they match up really well. Both very well-rounded fighters. Lyman Good versus Bilal Muhammad looks awesome. Jim Miller versus Roosevelt Roberts. I'm excited for that one. I like Roxanne Modafferi versus Lauren Murphy too. That one's going to be really good. But man, yeah, so I got a couple of fights here, dude. All of these look really good. I like these matchups. Jim Miller versus Roosevelt Roberts, especially, I think for me, is going to end up with somebody getting a bonus, if not both fighters getting a bonus. Bill, but this card is looking stacked, man. I'm really excited now.
Yeah. Top to bottom. This one's awesome. This is really spectacular matchmaking here. I think there's so many fun fights. For me, I'll pick the Lyman Good Bilal Muhammad. I think it is going to be really fun. But I think I think one that's just going to be wild is Clay Guida, Bobby Green. Like I don't see like those guys. Aggressive wrestling versus aggressive striking. It's like which one is going to cave first. So that's a really fun one, man. This card is so good.
I know. Like I'm even looking at this Tisha Torres fight looks good. Courtney Casey versus Jillian Robertson.
Yeah, man. This is fun, and it's got a lot to live up to because not a whole lot of star power here. Jim Miller, Clay Guida, probably the biggest names on the card. And we had this last card that like everybody was like, oh, I don't know any of these people. And then it was awesome. So hopefully we'll have something similar here. Yeah, man. That's all I got. You got anything else you want to get off your chest here?
No, dude, this fight looks awesome. And then we have Poirier versus Dan Hooker coming up. That's going to be good. That's another card coming up, which we can look at probably next week. But, dude, Bill, I think we're getting spoiled, man. I mean, is it bad that I'm okay with quarantine if we keep getting fights like fight cards like this? Yeah, man.
It's been awesome. I think especially with the smaller cage, it makes things interesting. And then we have, the infamous Fight Island is coming up. So we'll get to see what that looks like. The UFC embedded should be really fun with that, where they're taking everybody to an island just off of Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, it'll be like Lost, but with more violence. It's going to be awesome.
More violence and less polar bears. I only ever watched the first season of Lost.
I've never watched it, so
after that, I was lost. In any case, I don't know what we're gonna do next week. Maybe we'll be live for some of these fights. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not big. I'm not a big planner, as you guys may have figured out. But in any case, if you guys haven't already, thank you to everybody who has purchased an MMA on the Rocks t-shirt. They are available for sale now, Over the Top and Under the Influence. So if you happen to find yourself often as one of those things or both of those things, then this is a great t-shirt for you. So you can find the link It's the pinned tweet on my Twitter at MMA on the Rocks, and it is in the bio of my Instagram at MMA on the Rocks. So you can find it. That's the easiest way to get it there. Our friends over at Rip Life One, Team Reaper, put these shirts together. They're a local printing company. Everything's made here in the good old United States of America. T-shirts are super comfortable, and if you guys want to support the show, that's a great way. Another awesome way you can support the show is to leave us a review wherever you happen to be watching or listening. Leave us comments on YouTube. Give the thumbs up. Share the episode. Let people know about us, and that really helps us out a lot more than you know. So thanks to everybody for tuning in wherever you happen to be watching or listening. We appreciate all of you guys. Please continue to be good to each other. I know I don't have to tell you guys this, but just be good to each other out there, and hopefully we'll start to see a turnaround with all the craziness going on out there. I want to see everybody being safe and hear good things. I want to hear what you're thinking and drinking out there. I don't want to hear that you're doing things that are unsafe or finding yourself in precarious situations. So if you want to get a hold of Jeff, you can do so at @animal_Wilson, Twitter and Instagram. You guys know how to get a hold of me. It's at MMA on the Rocks. Everywhere else, you can send me an email, MMAonTheRocks@gmail.com. We love interacting and hearing from you guys, and suggestions how we can make the show better, and what you guys are drinking during the fights, all that good stuff. All right, that's all we got. Till next time. Cheers, everybody. Goodbye.